I'm the historian for the Republican Party of Texas. I was appointed under then Chairman Allen West, Lieutenant Colonel retired. All right. And I was reappointed by current Chairman Matt Rinaldi. So I am thankful to be able to travel the great state of Texas and talk about history. It's so important that we protect that history. People ask me often, why did you get in the land commissioner's race? And I'll share that with you in just a moment. I'm thankful that my past has allowed me to work in politics over the last several years. I'm a two-time Republican nominee for U.S. Congress, Congressional District 15, married for 26 years, 27 next month.
All right.
Yes, that's something great. Thank God for that. Also, I have 3 children, 3 grandchildren. But why this race? After running for U.S. Congress a couple of times and falling short, I'd gotten to a point where I was physically exhausted. And so for those like Sandra that's out there, my dear friend Sandra Whitten, she understands running for office, it can really wear you out. And so I was physically exhausted, things were going on, and I said, I don't know about running for office anytime again in the near future. I thought I was done. However, when you realize that you have an opportunity to impact people, you have an opportunity to make change, you have an opportunity to stand on a platform and make a difference, then minds are changed. I recall the day that I decided to run for land commissioner. I just recently buried my brother and officiated his funeral, one of my 4 siblings, the oldest of the 4. And I went to Louisiana and officiated his funeral, and shortly after that, my family was hit with COVID, my entire family, including me. We were getting the infusion therapy on Thanksgiving. We couldn't even cook our turkey. And we were at a point where we were like, oh, wow, what are we going to do? We're going to live. We're going to continue to give God the glory. We're going to continue to praise Him. We're going to continue to fight. Amen. And as that time passed, I was at a point where maybe 2 weeks passed after the COVID. I lost sight in my right eye. And I had a patch on my eye. So here I am in just about a month period, lost and officiated the funeral for my oldest brother. Entire family hit with COVID. Lost sight in my right eye. Got a patch on my eye. And I'm thinking, run for office now? But I prayed on it. After prayer, and I realized what was taking place with the General Land Office. TITFF, can I hear you? Yeah. All right. Yeah. Those patriots you hear there, this is Texas Freedom Force. I ran across those patriots some while back when they were making sure their voices were heard in San Antonio. When there was an attempt to destroy, and I mean destroy the cenotaph, they say they wanted to move it, but they wanted to destroy it, and ultimately destroy the Alamo, and ultimately begin to shift and change history. I ran across them when I was testifying to make sure I spoke that that cenotaph will not be moved. Not 1 inch, not on my watch. Amen. Thought about that during that time when I was thinking, do I run or do I not run? Do I get in this race or not? And I told my wife, I said, babe, because several things had to happen for me to get into this race. Several things, because at the end of my last race, I found myself in the hospital so sick that I was literally about to die. I was in the hospital for a week because health conditions. And I said, do I want to get back into another campaign? Do I want to do this? All this is going on. And I'm having to travel on that Monday, the last day to file to get on the ballot. I'm having to travel to Louisiana because now my oldest sister is having open heart surgery. So I have to go for that. And I'll never forget my wife, my kids, my family, we prayed about it. And I heard my wife speak and say, hey, you remember you said certain things had to happen. That one thing happened the week prior to me getting on the ballot. I saw a report. I'm an Army veteran, by the way, 7 years active duty, 1 in the Texas National Guard. And so when I saw a report that from the General Land Office, and I'm going to put it in layman's terms, one of the people that's in charge there was not paying homage or respect to our veterans and basically said veteran cemeteries were a waste of money. I told my wife, you know what that is, and she reminded me that was your last straw. I said, yes, you're right. So en route to Louisiana to go to my sister's open heart surgery, I stopped in Austin, and I got on the ballot. And I'm driving there with one eye, and my wife said, "You're going to be able to drive?" I said, "I can drive with one eye." They blink at the same time, so I just imagine it's blinking. So I get back. I'm on the ballot the last day possible, so I'm the last of the 8 candidates to declare candidacy for the Texas Land Commissioner's office. People ask, "Do you stand a chance?" I said, "You don't know my God. Do they stand a chance?" So why get in it? Because I have a voice. There's a platform. I remember 2 instances, well, 3 I'll share with you. And these are the things that keep me going. This is Texas Freedom Force inviting me to an event up in North Texas. I was there at that event, and I was speaking about the importance of history, the importance of protecting our history, the importance of protecting our monuments, because the left wants to destroy those monuments, and in destroying those monuments, they destroy evidence of a history that they want to rewrite. Amen. We have to protect it. So I was speaking, and I remember this one young man with his mother, just a little kid. His mother said, "He wants to meet you. He didn't get a chance to see you when you were speaking at the Alamo. He wants to meet you. He's going to be so excited to meet you in person." And I remember this little kid, couldn't have been but about that tall. He's giddy and he's smiling at me like I'm some superstar. And he walks up to me and he couldn't stop shaking and smiling. And he's smiling and he said, "I did miss you at the Alamo speaking." And he wanted to take a photo. He took a photo. That face is etched into my brain. That experience is etched into my heart. When I can see a young patriot that's thinking about the Alamo and thinking about history. His mom said, "I've never seen him light up with anyone talking about history until he heard you speak." That moved me. A second instance, I'm at the Alamo months later. A young man walks up to me, and he looks up at me, and he says, "Thank you for protecting me." That touched my heart. I had another young man with his mother as we were at a rally here recently in Austin, Texas. This mother walked up, and this child too missed a rally in San Antonio. So the mother brought him to Austin. She said, "He wanted to meet you." He couldn't even look me in the face. He was so shy. But to meet him, that touched my heart. Why do I bring this up? Because ultimately it's about the next generation. Many of us in here, we've been able to enjoy Texas. We've been blessed to be able to enjoy this great place we call home and we call Texas. But at the rate we're going, the future generations will not be able to enjoy the Texas that we've come to enjoy and we've come to love. So people like me must stand up. I have a voice, and there's a platform called the General Land Office. It must be used. I'm a player, one that I look at things like sports. Why have a great skill, a great blessing, great gifts, great abilities to make change and not use them? There was no way I can sit on the sideline when I saw what was taking place with the General Land Office, when I saw the attacks on the cenotaph, I saw the attacks on history. I know that history matters. I know what change history can make. It was history that brought me into the Republican Party. I remember hearing about the Republican Party of Texas and the Republican Party as a whole, which we just passed here recently, the inception of the Republican Party in Wisconsin, 1854, March of 1854. So I think about this and I said, why history? We have to protect it. The Land Commissioner's office has a charge. People ask me, what are you going to do? What do you want to do? I want to read out to you just a couple of things, share with you a couple of things, because as a PhD, sometimes things become complex when I speak about it. But I remember preaching my first sermon. I'm a minister 12 years as a senior pastor. And I remember preaching my first sermon. And I remember using what we call flashcards back then. And my wife said, "What are you using those flashcards for?" These were flashcards for elementary school kids. She said, "Why are you using those?" I said, "Because if I can reach the youngest one in the room, the old one's gonna get it." Yes. So I want to keep it simple. What do I want to run for this office for? We have to secure our borders. Amen. Our borders are being overrun. We have to secure them. People may ask, well, what do you have to do with that? A lot. I have a lot to do with it. One, we have 1,254 miles of southern border. We have hundreds of thousands of acres that's under the purview of the General Land Office. I want to make sure that if you step foot on any of that public land and you're an illegal immigrant, that you're charged with a felony and that your chances to become a citizen won't ever happen. Some may say, well, how are you going to do that? Isn't that legislation? Isn't that legislative and you're executive? Absolutely. I told people many times, I was never born in a box, so I don't have to think outside of the box. I've always been outside of the box. I'm going to make sure I speak to those legislators and let them know this is what we need to do. Why go that route to secure our borders? Do we need to put the wall up? Yes, we need something erected. We know that as we look in the region of El Paso, when they erected a wall or a structure, it worked, and illegal immigration was curbed. It went down tremendously. When I spoke with a Border Patrol agent, I spoke with one, and as he began to share with me, he said, I want to let you know something. He said, we can build the wall to make sure we protect our southern border, but he said, they're going to climb that wall. They're going to blast a hole through it. They're going to get through it, whatever they need to do. And he said, you know why? I said, why? He said, because we have incentives on the other side. As long as there are incentives for people to come into our nation illegally, they're going to keep coming. The wall may slow them down, but they will not stop. My goal is to disincentivize. Yes. I want illegal immigrants so confused as to whether or not they're on public or private land that they go back across that border. That's what I want to do. Secondly, we have to stop China from buying up our public land. My niece is a pilot in the U.S. Air Force, first lieutenant. She's a U.S. Air Force Academy graduate. She trained for pilot school at Laughlin Air Force Base in Del Rio, of which I'll be tomorrow. During her training, I would go and visit her periodically. And I realized Del Rio is a small place right there on our border. But when I found out that China bought up numerous acres of land right by Laughlin Air Force Base, not only was I disappointed, I was upset.
90,000 acres.
Thank you. How and why is it possible that China could buy up land near one of our 3 Air Force pilot training facilities?
Wow.
Unacceptable. Someone asked me, how did it happen? I said, someone at the General Land Office was asleep at the wheel. Not on my watch. We have to make sure that China's not buying up unlimited public land, not in the great state of Texas. I tell people often, they say, what did you do in your past? I did quite a bit. I've been blessed. But one of the things I did and I enjoyed the most, I was a university instructor. I taught at 2 universities. My favorite course to teach was critical thinking, teaching those young people how to think to make a difference in the future. So I taught critical thinking. But there's a mess being taught in public schools right now that we need to stop, and it's called critical race theory. Yes. They say, well, what do you have to do with that? I give you about 50 billion reasons that that's a part of my purview. We have about $50 billion that's managed by the General Land Office with respect to the Permanent School Fund. We have a say in what takes place with that money. We have a say in what takes place with the money going to TEA, the Texas Education Agency. We have a say. One thing I'll do, I'll use my voice. I'll put enough pressure on all the decision makers that if money keeps flowing to people and places that's going to teach critical race theory, you all won't have a job long. Amen. We have to make sure as well that we stop giving away America to illegal immigrants while Texans and veterans are suffering. Amen. People say, well, what do you have to do with that? I have a voice. I just shared in the vetting room that we have to use the platforms that we have. The platform of the General Land Office, I was sharing with them, I said the first time that I saw the current General Land Commissioner, George B. Bush, first time I saw him was 2018. That was at the San Antonio convention, the state convention in San Antonio. I saw a light, feel free. I saw a light. And I saw a camera on him. And I noticed then instantaneously, I said, he has a platform. If I use my platform as the next General Land Commissioner only to do the 5 or so major things the General Land Commissioner does, then I'm robbing we the people. I'm going to be elected to be a voice for we the people.
Come on.
That's the equivalent. Thank you. Thank you. That's the equivalent of me going by a house and see it starting to burn and say it's not my house. I don't pass by a home that's burning and say it's not my house. I say something about it. I do something about it. I act on it. As the next General Land Commissioner, if I see a fire burning in the great state of Texas, you can rest assured I'm going to do something about it, and I'm going to say something about it from this platform. As I move towards close, I want to point out to you, there are several things we have to do. When I think about my time, not just on the campaign trail, but my time before that, I want to share a story with you all. Many of you are familiar with this story. About 186 years ago, there were some patriots that got word from a general that you all may know as Sam Houston. And the word came to them that they are to get all the armament, get all the people, and depart from San Antonio. But instead of departing from San Antonio, they decided to stay. Why? Because word was coming from Bowie, well, at this point, and Bowie, Jim Bowie there was, he's coming, and he decided San Antonio was worth saving. He decided that we're going to take a stand. Now I want to share with you all, this was just about 186 years ago, that these people we now know as defenders decided that they were going to stay and fight. These defenders had families, they had children, they had homes, but they also had vision. They had a vision that they wanted to see a great state that we now call Texas as sovereign. They wanted to see it free from under Mexico's authority. And they decided that they were going to sacrifice it all. They decided that they were going to lay everything on the line, including their lives. So instead of departing San Antonio, they dug in at a place that we know as the Alamo. And as they dug into this place called the Alamo, they began to fight because they were thinking not about self, but they were thinking selflessly. They were thinking about family. They were thinking about other patriots. They were thinking about the future. And they dug in. And as they fought on day 1, and they fought on day 2, and they fought on day 3, the fight continued to go. And they were dying, one next to the other, next to the other, next to the other. And what did these patriots do? They stayed in the fight. I want you all to understand, at this point, there was likely the smell of death around them because of the bodies dropping. This went on for 13 days. So not only did they have the smell of death, but they knew it was going to be just a matter of time before they became one of them. Instead of retreating, they stayed and they fought. But they weren't alone. Adding to that number of just under 200 was about 30 or so defenders from Gonzales. And there was a place that you know called Gonzales that a cannon was made and a flag was made and a cannon was there, and on that flag it said, "Come and take it." That same come and take it mentality, that mentality was there with these near 200 defenders. And they fought. And legend tells us that right before the last day of battle, there was one by the name of Lieutenant Colonel William Travis. young lieutenant about 26 years of age. Legend says that he drew a line on the ground and he challenged those patriots at that time, those that were still alive, all those willing to fight for freedom's cause, take a step across this line. There was one boy he was not physically able to cross because of his ailments, and he asked them to pick him up and carry him across that line. All of them would eventually see their demise. They would all die because at Santa Ana, the general from Mexico was arriving with his troops, more troops coming. They had a red flag. That red flag signified that no one will be taken alive, but that all will die. All of those who were able to survive were brought out. They were tortured. They were killed. They were burned. Word spread throughout the great state of Texas. As word spread, the Army of Texas began to grow, and the spirit of Texas began to grow. And in a place called San Jacinto, these people we now look at as defenders, these great Texans, they went into battle against Santa Ana's men. And when they went into battle, legend tells us and history shows us, they ran into battle yelling those words: remember the Alamo. Remember the Alamo. Remember the Alamo. It is that mentality and mindset that I'm going to run into Austin, and I'm going into battle. Though I might be outnumbered by the bureaucrats, and though I might be outnumbered by the establishment, I know that I have defenders such as you that are amongst us today that will back me all the way as we go and we fight for we the people. Texas is worth fighting for.
Yes. Amen.
Texas is worth fighting for.
Yes.
Texas is worth fighting for.
Amen.
If you don't remember anything else tonight, remember Dr. Tim Westley, for land commissioner, said Texas is worth fighting for. No matter what, elected or not, Texas is worth fighting for. God bless you, God bless the great state of Texas, and God bless America. Thank you all. God bless.